And no, stay back,
topics around reading. And I'm
just stay over there.
Myself,
Just stay over there.
Point of view from my angle, which is a professional.
I know. It's Lagan. It's Lagan.
I know it's Lagan. I say Lagan.
It's Lagan.
Because I'm a bit of a stick-up.
I don't even. He's probably never broken the law. Welcome back to the Book Report. Something unusual happened last night. It's not a usual thing for me. I'm not, aside from YouTube, I'm not active on any social media platforms or anything like that. Sharing my videos or being tagged in a thing is not something that is common. But this morning I woke up and another booktuber who unfortunately I was unfamiliar with. I'm now familiar with them. Appreciate them. I will link their channel down below along with a dozen or so other things. I had noticed that they had tagged my video and had even sent another booktuber over into the comments to say hello and to note that he had been tagged, and it's all very, very 21st century. But it was interesting because that sort of thing doesn't happen, at least in my sphere of existence. And I was deeply appreciative. So apparently, as I understand it, there is a trend amongst some of the booktube channels where they're tagging a booktuber, and then the booktuber is asked to answer a series of questions. And I don't typically sort of buy into trends. It's just not my thing. It's not like I'm trying to be different or anything. I just, I'm a little lazy. So what I had planned to do was a video about a few of my favorite things. And those things include other YouTubers and other booksellers. But since I was tagged in this video trend, I decided I'll give it my best shot. There are only a handful of other videos that I'll actually have the time to film in this space as we are about to move, and that is approaching imminently. So I'm going to try to record some things kind of ahead of time so that I have something to put out over the next couple of months. Just have it scheduled, and this was going to be one of those videos. But I think we're going to be a little early with it, or at least with part one. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know. We'll see how it gets edited. Enough of the preamble. I'll get to the point. The booktuber who tagged me is a booktuber called Please Read Your Book. He has a nice little channel. I unfortunately don't know that much about him and have not watched all of his videos. And that is my own personal shame, I guess, of being tagged by somebody and not being familiar with them. But I appreciate it nonetheless, and I want to link to his channel below. He has listed a series of prompts in his description, which I don't necessarily intend to repeat if I do in fact tag other booktubers, which I will in this video. I'll leave it open to them, and I'm probably going to go a little off the rails here. I'll either not answer all of these questions, or I'll answer different questions or some of the questions. So Okay, so I'm just referencing his questions here. So the first one, what was your favorite picture book as a child? And it's funny, I live in a world of children's books because I have 2 children and I read them books on the reg. And so I've thought a lot about this. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the children's books that I recall from my youth are not necessarily popular today. And I don't know if they were perennial favorites. There's one in particular that comes to mind, and it was the English retelling of the Russian folktale, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's the Baba Yata, I believe is what it was. This is the chicken leg lady. I remember this being a really big book in the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember the artwork standing out particularly. So just in terms of the first thing that comes to mind, something like that. And of course, Where the Wild Things Are, Maurice Sendak is absolutely perennial. And I still love his artwork, and I read those books to my children. So it's yeah. So there you go. There's number one. What series did I love as a child? It's funny. I still am not one for series. I have read serialized books. Read a lot of them, but it's not necessarily my favorite form of lit, and I don't have great reasons for that, other than just the investment factor. Once you get into a series, you got to really dig into it, and I think that the first series that I really remember just absolutely loving, I probably found them when I was 12 or 13 years old, were the Rama books by Arthur C. Clarke. I got into Clarke really early. He was my gateway into SF. And so the Rama books really stick out. And I believe, if my memory is correct, I read all of them, including the Gentry Lee book, Bright Messengers, but I have zero recollection of Bright Messengers. The books kind of went downhill pretty fast. I think generally, I think I've mentioned this in other videos too, that the second book is, in my opinion, the best. I feel like the first and the second book should just be one book, but that's a whole other, I should probably reread them before I make bold statements like that. The worst book that I have read or I have tried to read. Yeah, there's one book that comes to mind, and the reason I hate this book is because of the teacher that is associated with it. And it's unfortunate to say I'm a big supporter of teachers. I have taught English myself. I know that it's not easy, but I grew up in the Deep South in a school system that was being systematically disabled by the state government and the religious right. So, maybe not the best teachers out there. I don't know, this one in particular. But this teacher had an unfortunate relationship with her husband, which is all very, very unfortunate. But she brought that energy into the class. And as a result, her favorite book was The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And it was known throughout the high school that this was her favorite book, that she was absolutely unshakable in this position, that she thought it was the finest piece of literature ever written. And we were basically told on day one, this is going to be something that everyone has to stomach and everyone has to deal with, is hearing again and again and again about how Nathaniel Hawthorne and The Scarlet Letter is the best book ever. And she was a spiteful woman. And I was a really good English student. Not to toot my own horn, but in terms of English students in southern Mississippi, it's pretty good. And I was, when I ended up in her advanced lit class, I think it was junior or senior year. I really made it known that I did not think highly of Nathaniel Hawthorne, or at least I didn't think as highly of Nathaniel Hawthorne as she did. And I had good valid reasons for that at the time, I'm sure. But being spiteful, she made certain that the final project for the semester or the year or whatever was a book project. Everybody got to pick their own book. Everybody had to do a lengthy project on the book, and I unfortunately was not allowed to pick my own book, and I was assigned the Scarlet Letter. And I remember her writing this little passive-aggressive note, explaining to me as a man how I would learn to appreciate, gosh, I can't remember exactly what she said, but basically I would learn to appreciate literature once I'd finally read this book. And I'd already explained to her that I'd read the book. It was like under my belt, so I was prepared. Anyway, I remember doing a really half-assed job on the project because, and I gave her a lot of lip, as high school students do. I still feel it today. You can probably see how much I feel it. I've rambled on about this way too long. But yeah, I hate that book. I hate it. Nathaniel Hawthorne can absolutely go suck an egg. Not that I am a proponent of adultery or anything like that. It's just a really shit fucking book. So, question number 4 is, what is my favorite reading or book memory? My favorite reading memory is this. So when I was 14, a friend of my older brother's, he was in the middle of living between different girlfriends or something to that effect. But this guy had a lot of books, and whatever the circumstances that prevailed, his books ended up in our garage. And I was already book obsessed, and the kind of stuff that he had was unreal. And he was a science fiction guy primarily, but he had all kinds of great woodworking books and just bananas. And he also had a low opinion of me at the time, which, whatever, people have low opinions of teenagers. But, in order to fix me and my stupid teenage brain at the time, he recommended that I read some Vonnegut. And he could not have been more correct. So he gave me a copy of Slaughterhouse-Five. And I think the day after he put this copy in my hands, we ended up on a bit of a road trip. And I was stuck in the back of like an S10 pickup truck with like the little bumper cab, barely enough room for a kid back there. And I'm like basically the same size that I am now, but as a teenager. I'm stuck in the back of this thing, and I've got this copy of Slaughterhouse-Five. And typically, I am unable to read in cars. It has been my whole life. I've not ever been able to read in a car. I'm not one of those lucky people that can do that. I get wackadoo car sick reading in cars. But I was so intent on reading this book, and I'd already read the first chapter, so I was completely clenched. I knocked that book out on the drive and had no prevailing symptoms of car sickness. And it was incredible. And it was one of those books that immediately, when you find an author like this, you read the first book and you're completely sucked in for life. And the only thing you want to do is get to a bookstore and find another one. And again, being in Mississippi, it's not that we didn't have bookstores, but outside of the religious section, nothing else is really stocked great. You go to the even in a Barnes and Nobles in the South, you know, a lot of times they'll have the basic lit titles and then maybe some popular titles. But then in terms of, you know, famous, you know, semi-obscure things like Vonnegut, which is, it's weird that he's obscure, but in terms of famous, obscure authors, they don't necessarily, they might have one, you know, I remember like they would have Slaughterhouse-Five, but they didn't have the others. So it was just at that point going forward, it was just a, you know, basically a race to like convince mom and dad to take me to a bookstore, find the Vonnegut book that I'm after, you know, or whatever one was there. And that was kind of the thing that governed my introduction to all of Vonnegut's books, and the order in which I read them was, you know, how I was able to get my hands on them as a teenager, in what order they came into my life accidentally. And that was really special. That still is one of my favorite book memories. A book that I loved as a movie. A book that I loved as a movie. There's a few. I'm going to have to fall back again on the Vonnegut. And I feel like a broken record every time I start going on and on and on about how much I love Kurt Vonnegut. But that's me. The adaptation of Mother Night with Nick Nolte is phenomenal. And I mention it, I bring it up often whenever books and movies come up. And I also bring up the fact that it pains me that there aren't more Vonnegut adaptations. To be honest with you, every Vonnegut adaptation that I've seen has been pretty great, including the Breakfast of Champions film, which is sort of widely panned. I thought that there was something about that movie that really captured the essence of the book in a way, especially the absurdity of the book. And I think that I think it's worth watching. But Mother Night in particular is spot fucking on. There are details, really critical details in the book that I can't imagine someone leaving them out, and the care that was taken with those details in the movie by the director is noticeable. And from what I understand, the director of that movie was going to do an adaptation of Sirens of Titan, but apparently Jerry Garcia's family owns the rights to that, unless I'm mistaken, and he was never able to get his hands on them. So that either will happen in the future or it will never happen. So we'll just, I don't know. Well, fingers crossed. A book that I wish that they would make into a movie. Questions like this are hard. It's funny. I think about this often when I'm reading. I think about whether or not a book would actually translate into film. I would honestly, I know we just mentioned Sirens of Titan. I'm not going to bring up Vonnegut again. You know, I don't know. I'd like to see someone take on the Strugatsky works. And I know that there's a film of Hard to Be a God, and there's the Tarkovsky movie. And I don't necessarily think that the Strugatsky books individually should be made into films, but I think that there is a space, and I've thought a lot about this, I've imagined it in my head, but I think that there's a space where you make a film about the Strugatskys and about, you know, just a semi-autobiographical explanation of how they came to be, the conditions under which they were writing, but then at the same time take the elements of the worlds that they wrote in their books and feed them surrealistically into their lives, and make sort of just an odd, absurdist picture. I feel like somebody out there could do that. I feel like it's a thing that should exist, and I'm kind of surprised it doesn't exist already. Question number 7 is, what book character would I like to have as a friend. And I don't know, man. I don't make friends easily. I can't say. I have felt great empathy for characters, and I have felt myself as a reader want to reach out to characters and stabilize them, you know. But that's also sort of just one of the things that makes me me. That's part of my personality. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to bum out on that question. I think we're skipping over question number 8 too. So question number 9 says, what nonfiction book would I recommend? What nonfiction book would I recommend? I have a lot that I would recommend. I really enjoy, in terms of just pure informational nonfiction book, I really enjoy Annie Jacobsen's books. She writes a lot about UFOs and black projects and that sort of thing. But I derive a lot of pleasure reading her books. The book, though, is a book called The Passionate State of Mind, and it is by an American philosopher, a working class philosopher named Eric Hoffer. And if you don't know anything about this book, it's a book filled with aphorisms. So just short little statements, and every single one of them, I think that there are roughly 200 to 300 of them throughout the book. Every single one of them is a brain cracker. It's a kernel of thought that you can chew on all day long, and you can reread the aphorism 4 or 5 different times, and it almost becomes meditative as you think through it and let it settle. Some of them set right into your bones, and you go, "Oh, okay, all right." Some of them are just brain busters. And then if I could hang out with an author all day, who would it be? All the authors I like are dead, and I don't like hanging out with corpses. I guess Larry Niven is not dead, but Larry's, I don't know. I don't know if he would be fun to hang out with. I like his books. I don't know if Larry and I would get along. Larry and I probably wouldn't see eye to eye on everything, at least these days. I imagine that at this point, Larry probably watches a little too much Fox News. So, who I would really, really like to have a beer with? I think the author I'd really like to have a beer with and just chill, talk shop with is Charles Yu. I don't know too much about him as an individual, but his book, How to Survive in a Science Fictional Universe, it is underappreciated. It's an amazing book, and there's definitely some part of him that is channeling Vonnegut. And I appreciate that because I feel like he nailed it. I think I mentioned it in a book review on the channel at some point. Maybe there's a whole video about it. I can't recall. But I think Charles, you and I are roughly the same age. He may have a couple of years on me, but I think generally we're the same age. We're in our 40s. And Charles writes in a way that I have always wanted to be able to write in as and I appreciate his approach to narrative. And I think that if we were to sit down and really have a nice conversation both about writing and about science fiction, I think we could really enjoy ourselves. I feel like it would be one of those conversations that we could probably lose a few hours and several pints of beer. And so Charles Yu is the answer to that question. Let's see if I covered it all. Yeah, okay, so those are the questions that were prompted. I appreciate, please read your book for the tag, and hope that I have sufficiently followed the trend. So, but what I want to do now, and I know, we're a bit long in the tooth here, but that's how my videos go. You subscribe because I ramble. let's be real about that. Yeah. So now I want to just take a minute, and I want to talk about a few of the booktubers that I really enjoy watching, and no. No, stay back.
Topics around reading. And I'm
just stay over there.
Myself,
just stay over there.
Point of view from my angle, which is just a professional.
I know. It's Lagan. It's Lagan.
Now, I know it's Lagan. I say Lagan.
It's Lagan.
Because I'm a bit of a stick-up.
I don't even.
This is.
He's probably never broken the law. So I want to talk about a few of my favorite booktubers, and I want to start out with Richard from Vintage SF. Richard's a fantastic guy. I don't know what it is when you find somebody on YouTube. There's the whole Alan Watts, Prickles, and Goo characterization of humans, and sometimes you just see somebody and you're like, oh man, that's Prickles and I'm Goo, or whatever it is, or that's Goo and I'm Prickles. But then you see somebody that you relate to and you like, and you're like, we are both Goo, or we're both Prickles, whatever it is. That's probably a shitty analogy, but when I watch Richard's videos, I think, man, like me and this guy, we're pissing in the same pot here. So I really enjoy watching his channel. I know that he's had some recent success. He's gotten to 1,000 subscribers, and that's pretty rad. His videos are super great, and he puts them out way more regularly than I do. I think on one hand, that's because he's read most of these books at least once already. And I think just, at the point in life that he's in, he's got a little bit more time to read, than most people. So he's pounding through the books. I, on the other hand, have got way too many things that I like to do, with the woodworking and the taking care of my kids and my household and getting ready to move and all this stuff. So reading is one of those things that I have to be strategic in scheduling, and I have little chunks of time carved out throughout the day to read, and those are the chunks that I get. But Richard he has an amazing battle rhythm with the quality of books that he's reviewing, and the pace at which his reviews are coming out. So plus his perspective on everything is pretty fantastic, and he doesn't pause in the middle of sentences as much as I do, and I don't think he says quite as much as I do. So, but he's a super fantastic guy, and I would definitely recommend you give his channel a look-see. The next channel I want to mention is Ira at SF Words of Wonder. And I think that Ira and I don't know him personally, but I think that Ira and I were sort of bit by the same bug at around the same time. I think our channels are roughly the same age. And Ira is a really down-to-earth, fantastic, just genuinely kind person. He reached out to me pretty early on in the channel for advice with shelves, for bookshelves. And since I've got some videos on my other channel where I have built some bookshelves, and he reached out on that channel and asked for some advice on some stuff, and I was happy to just tell him what I knew. And he ended up building a really fantastic set of shelves that are featured in his videos regularly. And he also has a really good battle rhythm in terms of reading books quickly and getting the reviews out. It's again something that I'm not ever going to be good at that, and I'm not in a race. I know that there's a lot of booktubers out there that are like, we're going to read 100 books this year, and I have no amount of competitive nature or competition, the urge to compete within my body. Like, I don't have it. I'm not a competitive individual, and I'm definitely not in a race to read all the books. So, and I'm not at all casting aspersions to anybody who can do that. If you have that battle rhythm and you can read 2 or 3 books a month and do reviews on them, then by all means, take that talent and do as much as you can with it. And I think Ira does. Ira has a great perspectives on his books. His reviews are very clean and to the point. They're not nearly as rambly as mine. And I think that he's got a really great little formula going on there, and he's just a super nice guy. So I definitely want to point people in the direction of his channel.
In fact, there's something no sort of personal offense is meant to anybody.
Okay, calm down. Calm down.
I just stand by
Calm
what I
down.
said, and I just want to talk about that a little.
There's 2 other channels that I want to mention. One, actually, technically 3, because 2 of them are run by the same fella. One of them is at Jack Myers Photography, and his channel is not necessarily devoted to photography. In fact, a great portion of that channel is dedicated to science fiction books. But Jack is amazing at videography and lighting. And so his videos have this really amazing quality to them that I wish that I had the knowledge and ability to replicate. And Jack has become a good friend of mine, and I hopefully will have a chance in the future to interface with him directly. And maybe there'll be some videos that we put out together. That would be really fun. But Jack has 2 channels. There's the Jack Myers Photography, and Jack also has another channel called Short Story Focus. And all of the reviews that he does on that channel are of short fiction, primarily science fiction and fantasy short fiction. These are very high quality channels, and I really enjoy his content very, very much. He's clearly very well read and has got a great perspective on things. And again, is a super duper nice guy. And it's one of my favorite things about the book community in general is just how friendly everyone is. I genuinely mean that. And I'll tell you just from my own perspective, the reason I started this channel is because I was having a hard time talking to the audience in my woodworking channel, because the channel for the audience of woodworking videos and the audience for book review videos or book videos in general is a very different audience. And the book people tend to be quite a bit more accepting and friendly. So it has allowed me to get comfortable talking to the camera, and then maybe one day I can translate that into talking to woodworkers, but we'll have to see. The last channel that I want to bring up is a channel called Quasar Spectra. And Quasar Spectra is dedicated to audio recordings of short science fiction and fantasy. The fellow who runs the channel, I don't know anything about him in particular, other than that he has a fantastic voice. It's something that I have been curious about audio production. I don't know much about audio production. I have a cheap little mic here, and that's how I make it. But I've been told many times throughout my life that I should attempt to do something similar to read stories, to make audio recordings of books and stories, and maybe one day we'll get there. But in any case, Quasar Spectra's channel is fantastic. It's everything that I could hope to make if I were making a channel of the same content. It's really, really top tier production quality in terms of capturing that SF vibe, and I really appreciate his channel. His channel has been helping me sleep, which I think in terms of completion rates is one of the best things that could happen to a channel. If you can get somebody to fall asleep to your videos, they're going to watch the whole thing. So really appreciate that channel, and I'll tag all of these channels below. You should definitely go look at them. You're probably already familiar with at least some of them, but please check them out. I want to wrap up by talking about some of my favorite booksellers. And the world of online bookselling is treacherous, to say the least, because of the existence of thrift books and the existence of Amazon and Amazon scanners and low effort sellers that are out there. And I think we've all had that experience where we order a book from eBay and it arrives and it's just thrown in unprotected, and it comes mangled, and it's got stickers all over it, and there's been absolutely no effort whatsoever that has been put into transporting this book safely from point A to point B. So what I would like to do is give you alternatives when you're looking for a book, especially something in particular. Instead of going directly to just a wide search on eBay where you could end up with a thrift book seller, a thrift books style seller, I want to point you in the direction of some truly fabulous sellers. And I want to list these people in no particular order. There's no ranking involved here. So, but I definitely think that all of these people deserve a mention, and there's probably more people that should be on this list than I am going to remember to talk about today. So maybe we could do a follow-up video where we really get in depth about some of these sellers and some of their awesome selling practices. The first seller that I want to mention is a seller from Minnesota. His name is This Charming Man Cave, and he's a really fantastic guy. His store is linked below. I think recently he's been selling a lot of really great Dune content, but truly great top tier eBay seller. And that is going to be the case with all of these that I mentioned. This Charming Man Cave has a fantastic store. He's really great at taking photos of his books. His photos look amazing. They look much better than my photos. But he is one of these sellers that you can depend on that will package your book appropriately, will ship it to you timely, and who will professionally handle any issues that you might encounter. And again, these will all be posted below, so check them out. I want to highlight a seller called Longview Books. Longview is another really fantastic guy. I believe he is in New York, and Longview is, again, top tier eBay seller. He sells quite a bit of Dragonlance and I think a bit more fantasy than I end up selling. He's really great about putting together sets, and I think that in terms of pricing, he's really spot on. You should definitely check him out. Both or many of the sellers that I'm going to mention to you today are also present on Whatnot, and they do live shows and they sell books live on Whatnot. So that's another place that you can find them. I'll try to add additional links to their profiles there as well. Another eBay and whatnot seller that can't be missed is Zig Zag Books and Games. Zig is a phenomenal reseller. She will package your book to survive a thermonuclear event. So you really have no fear ordering anything from her. She has a really great selection of pretty much everything. And I know that right now she's sitting on a ton of Easton presses, and she sells a lot of Dragonlance books. She is a great reseller of video games. Part of the reselling experience is putting in the work to find the objects, because it's not always easy. They don't just drop into your lap. And Zig lives in a fairly remote region, but she is able to put in the work to do the sourcing to find some really great stuff. And both her eBay page and her Whatnot shows are fantastic, and you can always trust buying books from Zig. I want to mention one other reseller. There's tons of others that I'd like to talk about, but this video has, I think we're pushing an hour on this video now, so I wonder if anybody's even still watching. But there's one more seller I want to mention, and he is, and I hope I don't embarrass you, Chris, when I say this, but he is like the dad of book selling. And I feel this way about him. I have genuinely warm feelings about him, but this is a bookseller called C. McFinn, Chris McMillen, Vintage Books. He is an eBay seller, and he sells on Whatnot, doing live shows. And he is, I think, the perfect example of what any modern vintage bookseller should strive to be. He is a fantastically knowledgeable. It is a shame that Chris doesn't have his own YouTube channel, because the amount of information that he has about books would rival would rival it would rival. He's awesome. Chris is awesome. I believe Chris is in the New York, New Jersey area. He's got a lot of pulps. He's got a lot of really rare stuff. And again, in terms of quality booksellers, Chris is all the way at the top. And I just don't think that I don't think the market would be the same without Chris and without booksellers like him. He is just a fantastic guy, and I hope to have an ongoing acquaintance with him for as long as I'm selling books, and I will likely do nothing but learn more and more and more from him. But please check out their eBay pages. Find them on Whatnot. These are all great sellers, and they deserve your attention. So these are a few of my favorite things. Thanks for bearing with me through this video, and I really appreciate those who tagged me, and want to just say thank you. This is a very wholesome community, and without getting too dark, I think that in our current dystopia, I think finding a wholesome community and holding on to it and fertilizing it with love and compassion and goodwill are the things that are going to do us the most good these days. So thank you, BookTube, for allowing me to speak inside of this space. And yeah, I really appreciate all of your thoughts, and I appreciate you watching these videos. So y'all hang in there, and I'll be back with a review really soon. Thanks.